I gotta say, the second King's Dominion became a Six Flags park, they've really jumped on using DC characters. I mean, they went obscure going for Raptor, and they're getting Terra from Teen Titans. Although I'm curious to see how they're gonna combine into a new coaster. What's up guys, I'm the East Coaster fan and today we're talking about Rapterra. Rapterra is a brand new roller coaster coming to King's Dominion in 2025. Rapterra is going to be a B&M wing coaster, but not just a wing coaster, a launch coaster as well. The last time we had a wing coaster come to the United States was almost 10 years ago. In 2015 there was one that was added to Holiday World, of course that being Thunderbird. And that was also a wing coaster that launched, so there you go, another one's coming to the United States. And ultimately, this is the big roller coaster that is the true replacement for Volcano the Blast Coaster that closed in, I think it was 2018. So in this video I'm going to go over my initial reactions to everything that was announced by King's Dominion regarding Rapterra and give my overall thoughts. And since I rode Volcano the Blast Coaster during my first visit to King's Dominion in 2017, I'm going to give my thoughts as to whether this feels like the right replacement. But before we get started, if you like this style of video, as well as vlogs and other amusement park related content, be sure to go down and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I try to make as many videos associated with amusement parks and roller coasters as possible. So if you're into that topic or you're just a full-on roller coaster enthusiast, be sure to go down and subscribe. Also be sure to follow me on Instagram as I'm very active on there and I post more pictures and videos. But let's get back to the subject at hand, Rapterra. We've known for a while now that King's Dominion is constructing a brand new roller coaster. In fact, it feels like the park has been sort of teasing this for years. But this season is where things really kicked into high gear, and we saw tracks show up, we saw literally them building the coaster before they announced it. That like half pipe element that you see in the animation, most of that, if not all of it, is already built. So it'll be really cool to see the rest of this ride go up, I presume during Haunt, and hopefully this ride should be ready to open really close to the beginning of 2025. But because I'm a roller coaster enthusiast, I took a deep dive into the animation released by King's Dominion to give what I think is going to be happening during some elements of this ride in the queue, as well as the ride experience in general, and then I'll give my thoughts as well on some of the elements. So let's first start with the entrance portal, and a lot of this is being reused, it looks like, from Volcano the Blast Coaster. There was that two-story building that they kept in place, which I believe during Volcano's day, that was mainly queue space. So you had some on the second level, and then there was some on the bottom level, and then you went into the mountain, and that's where the station was for Volcano. This time, it looks to be more of like an entry portal area. I'm not sure if they're keeping any of the queue in there, because as you can see, a lot of the queue really stretches back further. And this was a line you never really got to step on when you were in King's Dominion before. So this is definitely something you're going to walk under, and it's a cool almost gateway for the coaster, you can think about it that way. In fact, one thing that caught my eye is when you leave the coaster, you kind of have this long walk back because the station's further away. Think of something like Superman Ultimate Flight, where the station's kind of further back and then you have to walk a distance to get back to the main park. So I was thinking maybe they're planning on putting a gift shop in there somewhere. Like, let's say you go down and they have pictures on the first level, and if you want to buy a shirt that says Rapterra, you can climb up the stairs and there's a whole gift shop on the second level. As long as they sell nano coasters for Rapterra, I'd be down for that idea. Or what about this random hut or like stand that they have in place underneath the half pipe element? That could be something maybe for merch, or maybe they'll sell like Rapterra, I don't know, chicken wings? Anyway, moving on to the queue, there are areas where it does cattle pen. I mean, I'm not super surprised to see that. That's like in most rides. However, I am curious that a lot of the queue space does get relatively close to the coaster. Like, look at this dive loop right here. Imagine standing like towards the very end of that cattle pin and it just comes swooping down. I wonder how close you'd be able to get to it in real life. I also appreciate that there's some thematic elements inside the queue as well, such as this like crater here. Now this is just a guess. This has not been announced by the park yet, but I'm guessing that crater is gonna be a memorial to Volcano the Blast Coaster. This is something we've seen on other coasters, within Cedar Fair, outside Cedar Fair. One quick example of it is Banshee. When they built that ride, they put an eternal flame right in the middle for Son of Beast. So I'm curious if they're gonna do sort of a similar thing in this queue line. In fact, part of the story for this ride implies that they built this temple on top of volcanic rock. So I kind of like how they're incorporating Volcano the Blast Coaster a bit into this new coaster. And then the last thing is just a lot of trees and maybe bamboo. As someone who likes Golden Kingdom, that is really cool to see and still fits in with the theming that's present in Jungle Expedition. But anyway, let's get now into what you're all here for, and that is the coaster itself. So as you depart, you're gonna veer right a little bit into a straight launch track. And I really like how they built all these like thematic ruins on top, and they're all at sort of different angles. But anyway, this is where your launch is going to be, where you launch to 65 miles per hour. A pretty solid launch, and if it's anything like what I've heard from Thunderbird, it should be a great launch to have in the park. But unfortunately, I already know this launch isn't going to be as good as Volcano the Blast Coaster. There was something really special launching that fast, going into the volcano, and doing that really wide turn at the end. That was really cool, and obviously it's something that they wouldn't have been able to replicate anyway, but it's sort of their replacement, I guess. But then this launch then leads into our first element. Now in this video already, I've been calling it a half pipe, but it's really a wing over. Think of almost like the element on Turbulence, where it like does that. Imagine that on a wing coaster. And I feel like it's going to be a really interesting sensation depending on which side of the train you're on. If you're on the left, you're going to be really like swooping up top. Although, as you can see on the right side, it looks like it's going to get really close. So I'm not sure how that's going to feel. But at least when you're on the right side, you can look down and see like the park guests below you. So that's pretty cool. Also, I'm just going to point this out now. I appreciate the animation does not show any netting. And I hope that they be able to do this in real life. We'll see what happens, as a big portion of this coaster actually does go over the pathway, which I appreciate. But in real life, you never know, so we might see netting, or maybe there's going to be like a really strict loose article policy. That way nothing flies off and hits someone. One other thing I'd like to add about this element is that the wing over is 145 feet, making it the tallest point of the coaster. Now, if I were to design this roller coaster, I actually would have increased it by 10 feet, make it 155. Why do I say that? Well, that's because Volcano the Blast Coaster hit a height of 155. This was when it came out of the volcano and did that like weird Immelman looking thing. So it would have been really cool to say, oh, it's the exact same height as Volcano, but whatever, 145. I guess if you're on the left side, you're about maybe 7 to 10 feet out from the middle of the track, so maybe on the left side when you're at the top, you're at the same height of Volcano. So then this swoops down into our dive loop that I mentioned before, and I think this is going to be a fun element. There isn't really much to say other than that. I think it's cool, and again, if you're sitting on the left side, I think you'll have a really cool interaction with the queue. And then this will lead into your S-turn, kind of a similar element to what's on Pipeline at SeaWorld Orlando, but this time on a wing coaster. I'm curious to see that sensation, whether it's better on the left side or the right side. Again, that's something we'll have to see. And then it does that turn over the pathway, which I really like. I think what I appreciate, and I think a lot of people are going to appreciate as well, is just how photogenic parts of this coaster are, including that wing over and that turn over the pathway. But then it sort of does this like Fury 325 thing where it stalls out at the end and you're sideways a bit. The technical element that King's Dominion gave this is a wing slide, and weird name, King's Dominion. I don't know what this is going to feel like, honestly. In fact, I'm just noticing now that a lot of this ride actually focuses on airtime, which is kind of odd. Usually, wing coasters focus on inversions and near misses, which I'll talk about that a bit later in the video. So looking at this, it is weird seeing this wing over and the S-turn, kind of more airtime centric elements on this ride. But anyway, after this wing slide, we're going to have a flat corkscrew. Nothing too strange about this element, just your typical corkscrew, which then leads into an airtime hill. Really, King's Dominion? Another airtime element? Okay. I have no idea how this is gonna feel. I feel like this is like the one part of this coaster that I'm just not a big fan of. See, all the other, I'll call them airtime elements, have something a little more dynamic going on. With the S-turn, you're at least twisting when you reach the apex, and then the wing slide is, I'll call it, at least unique. This is just a normal airtime hill, and it's not one of those really sharp ones that Dr. Diabolical has, so this really just feels like a part of the ride where you can catch your breath, and that's saying that very lightly because I don't think this ride's going to be super intense. But whatever, moving on from that, we're going to enter our... what's it called on here? A 360 Raptor roll. King's Dominion. Let's talk for a sec. If you're gonna call it this ridiculous name, you might as well call it the 360 Rapterra roll. You're calling it Rapterra and not Raptor for a specific reason, so just go with the theme and call it a Rapterra roll. And if this ending is trying to replicate Thunderbird, then put a near miss element here. This seems like the perfect spot. You end the ride by like narrowly missing some thematic element towards the end like Thunderbird does. I am happy they placed a bunch of trees so you don't see the side of Flight of Fear, but that's it. Yeah. Now don't get me wrong, I am still very excited for this edition. I think it's gonna be really cool. Could they have done stuff a little bit better? Yeah, like I think some of these airtime elements could have been more inversions or more dynamic things. They could have added more thematic elements that act as near misses, especially by the 360 Raptor roll, or literally as you're going down from that dive loop. What if there was like something that you went by really quick? That would have been so cool. Or by the corkscrew, kind of like this basic element, but you have another near miss there. I don't know. Now, I know I'm asking a lot right now, but this is just something I thought of as I was watching this video. It's treating itself as this, like, themed experience within Jungle Expedition, but you gotta have more theming throughout than just pillars on the launch track. And this animation is most certainly not the final product. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more that is going to be added. Maybe there's going to be queue music, maybe on-ride music, maybe station music. Who knows? King's Dominion could surprise us with some of the theming on this ride. So there you go, that's the entire ride experience that Rapterra is going to have. And there's really two more things I want to talk about. One is the name itself, Rapterra. Now, I made a joke at the beginning of this video, obviously, but what are my true thoughts on this name? I actually really like it. I think it's cool. It sort of fits with that Jungle Expedition theme. I just hope that GP don't get mixed up. I saw a comment from someone on Instagram saying that having Rapterra and Reptilian right next to each other is gonna cause at least some confusion. And yeah, I think that is definitely a problem that the park is going to have to face. And the other is kind of this just new B&M problem that's been going on. It was something that we saw on Iron Menace as well as I've been hearing on Penguin Trek. And that's that there's a shakiness to a lot of these new B&M roller coasters that I really hope that Rapterra does not have. Imagine if they open this coaster and it's shakier, it has a rattle, worse than like Dominator. And I don't even think that Dominator is rough. I think that ride's relatively smooth for the most part. But if you open a coaster that has a rattle worse than a relocated Floorless, that's a big problem. So hopefully B&M works everything out, all the kinks in manufacturing and fabrication, construction, whatever the problem is, hopefully they get it fixed for Rapterra. But anyway, that's all I gotta really say about Rapterra. I'm really eager to get on this coaster. I feel like this is going to be one of the must-hits of 2025, especially for me living on the East Coast. And more importantly, I think it'll fill that void that Volcano the Blast coaster has had on the park. I mean, it's been so long since something's been added there, and it was so weird just seeing that empty for an extended period of time. So filling that up is really nice, and if it's with a B&M wing coaster, let it be a B&M wing coaster. And who knows, if the Rapterra thing doesn't work, slap the DC characters on there.